Welcome to Spiritual Talk with Christy Godwin and Friends, an authentic podcast where we sit and discuss all things spiritual. Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Christy Godwin. Welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Talk with Christy Godwin and Friends. Today, I have a friend, Valerie Kogut. Thank you so much for being here today, Valerie.
Good morning, Christy. It's a delight to see you again.
I just love her. So we were actually laughing and I was like, okay, I'll be serious. And I hit the record button and Valerie's like, yeah, don't do that. So I won't be serious. Now, what we are here to discuss is Valerie's book. It is Nutrition and Cancer. Now, a little bit about Valerie. She has a master in arts. It is in adult and community education. She's a registered dietitian, and she's also a licensed dietitian nutritionist. And so what Valerie was saying, which I thought was important, I didn't really know this, is that not all states require their nutritionists to be licensed. Is that what you said?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah, I was surprised, but she is
licensed dietitian nutritionist in Pennsylvania.
And I found that interesting. I just assumed everyone, and every state had that.
No.
So now I met Valerie through a reading. Now I will read people. I have people pop on, I give them readings, and sometimes we get into their history. We always get into what they're doing right now. But, given that we don't always get into their history, we're here to talk to their past relatives. And so when I was diagnosed with cancer, Valerie reached out and said, hey, I have a book I wrote about nutrition and cancer. Would you like a copy? And jokingly, but I really wasn't joking, I was hoping she would do it. I said, yes, but I only want one if you will sign it. And so she did. Look at my signature. For those of you watching on the YouTube channel, you saw the signature. For those of you listening on my podcast, I was just showing the signature. Okay. So now, Valerie, this book you said is about 10 years old, right?
That is correct. Yes.
But there is no big changes that you have seen in the way nutrition and cancer is approached.
Everything is evidence-based. Currently, things do change over time, but the information in the book is all still accurate.
And I will let everyone know that's not where my education is. My master's is in business and finance. and of course I have a lot of training in the metaphysical arts, but just in what I have been told by other people and what my own studying has been, and then I read her book, I will say that I didn't find really anything different, but that is my own personal opinion. I am not educated in that. Now, what I want to say about the book that I liked so much, there's a couple of things I really loved about this book. For one thing, it is thin.
Yes, that was the purpose. We wanted to make it easy for people. Yes. The fact that we didn't want to make it difficult. We wanted to make it, my co-editor and I, Sandra Luthringer, wanted to do it so if people wanted to, first of all, carry it with them, as maybe they were reading it during treatments. But the other thing about the book is we wanted to focus on symptom management and give people short, little practical suggestions coming from two very experienced oncology dietitians.
And that was my next thing that I love so much about it, but we'll get to that in a moment. We're going to go to, because for one thing, am I used to reading very thick and complicated books? I am. But let me tell you, the second I was diagnosed with cancer and I had to take so much of what I call my mental bandwidth to absorb information that I was not familiar with, like words. I am not a medicine person. So we have all these words being thrown at you, not only medicines, but diagnoses, the different tests that you have to have that you've never had before. I have not been reading nearly as much.
Sure.
But because I usually read complicated crap. So when I got this book, I was so happy because it is so easy to read.
Yes.
with lots of good information. And I so appreciate that, because I think that y'all could have chosen much more complicated words to say very easy to absorb information. So now when you're reading something and I see an author like throwing in these big words where they can make it easier, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. I so appreciated that y'all wrote it for people of all education levels. Everyone has, whether you're educated or not, has a certain level of information that they can absorb, especially if you're going through something as stressful as cancer.
The book actually came out of another book that was written prior to it. The book that was written prior to it was for health professionals. And it is nutritional issues and cancer care. And the way we organized that book was based on each specific type of cancer. Like there was a chapter on breast cancer. There was a chapter on head and neck cancer. And that was something that was requested by the Oncology Nursing Society at the time. So we did that book in combination, not only with dietitians who were experts in these different areas, but also nurses. So every chapter had a nurse and a dietitian author.
I love that. You know what? That makes so much sense for everyone. I know not everyone watching this or listening to it knows my background. I taught at a college level for about 17 years. I can attest to what Valerie is saying in a different area. Like you will get textbooks at they think that professors want to read this complicated stuff. I'm like, give me what the student's reading, please. There's so much you can understand. So I can absolutely see that. Like y'all took this information that y'all probably use very technical language in and just switched out the technical words and put easier to understand words for people like me who don't have an education in that.
Now, it was a request by the ONS that we do a patient version. So that's where this came from.
I love that. It makes so much sense now because that's what I'm telling you. I cannot stress enough how impressed I was with how easy this book was to understand. Okay. I don't know why people will give self-help books to the general population and put very complicated words in them. And when I say complicated, it's not that we can't read them, but if you're not trained in a certain area, like I could throw probably finance and business terms out at you and you'd be like, what? Yeah. But I could just put normal everyday words in it. You completely understand what I'm saying.
Right.
We don't need to overcomplicate things. Now, the next thing that I loved about this book was the way it was divided up. Because it was very symptom. I think Valerie mentioned that earlier. It was very symptom. First, it starts with general nutrition. I was like, sweet. Let's go through general nutrition. And it kind of gives you an overall basics of all types of cancers, not really related to if you're having a specific issue, just overall. For those of you watching, I have like 15,000 tabs in this book because, it's one of those books where it's like, oh, that's good. Let me tab it. Oh, that's good. So towards the end, I was like, Christy, you have to stop tabbing. You're never going to be finished with this podcast. So now one thing that I really liked is on the very second page too. It says keys to balance is key, because let me tell you, I have gotten all kinds of, which I very much appreciate when people give me advice, but they're like, don't do this, don't do that. I have always been very much about balance. Listen to your body. Now I have been trying to do that more. The second I was diagnosed, of course, psychic medium, I started sitting in meditation, talking to my guides. What am I missing here? Variety is vital. Is it because of all the nutrition you get different nutrition from different foods?
Absolutely, because eating one specific food or taking one specific supplement is not going to give you all the nutrients that you need. It goes back to the old saying of eat across the rainbow.
Very good. Yes, yes, yes. And then the last one is, so it's balance is key, listen to your body, variety is vital, and then make every bite count. And this goes back to, I've never really eaten empty calories. And as a result, my body is very healthy outside of the cancer. I know that's a weird sign, but actually everyone has said, every doctor I've gone to is like, you're really healthy outside of this cancer thing. But I did it for vanity. I always like to fit in my jeans.
Everybody has their motivation, and I think motivation is important.
Oh my goodness, I love that, Valerie. She's so sweet, being so politically correct. Yes, Christy, we're not going to call you vain. We're just going to say, talk about motivation. It's important.
Motivation, absolutely. What's going to motivate you to make that change?
I absolutely love that. Now, I hear you talking a lot about, and this is where I kind of go, what I have not done it. I will be 100% honest. I have not cut meat out of my diet. It's very popular. I can't tell you how many emails I got from people I knew and didn't know telling me, hey, you've got to cut meat out of your diet. I have been smart about my meat. I get a cow. I live in Nebraska, and someone out in Western Nebraska raises my cows. And
that's smart. That's a good way to
go. They're, so they're raised healthily. And then, I buy organic chicken. And a lot of people, and this is something I know, I don't know if you can attest to this, Valerie, but I try not to buy farm raised seafood.
Makes sense. Yes, absolutely.
I just heard that
no, you're absolutely right on that. Yeah.
Okay. So those are the changes. I mean, that's how I take in my protein. So I am not giving up my protein. I'm not giving up my meat. I'm not doing it.
I don't think you need to give up any specific food. I think all foods can fit, and variety is good. You may find during your chemotherapy, that you eat less meat, maybe more chicken, maybe more tuna, something like that. But, I think everything in moderation can work.
I like, and just for everyone watching, at the point of this recording, I have not started chemo. If it goes according to plan, by the time this podcast drops, I will have started chemo. And I'll be interested to see how that works, because currently I eat red meat like once a week, maybe.
Oh, that's fine.
I eat chicken, a lot of, I eat a good bit of chicken, and then salmon is some of my go-tos, shrimp, those types of things. Again, because, okay. Now, something on here that I really liked was that you put eggs as an excellent source of protein. And I read one time, and this was several years ago, that for a long time, eggs had gotten a bad rap because people thought they increased your cholesterol, which they really don't. And I've always been a big egg fan. Peanut butter and hummus. I love me some hummus. And then you go through the book. I do want to talk a lot about this, or a little bit about this, watch the sugar. And I've got that instantly. Of course, I've always watched my sugar, empty calories, and I know that it causes instantly your body just to not regulate itself as well. And so you have a whole little section on how to watch the sugar. And again, you're all about moderation.
Yes, very much so.
Yes.
I think the biggest thing when you think about sugar, it does come up a lot in discussions with cancer. And
it really does.
Patients ask me, does sugar feed cancer? So let's address it.
Please, yes, let's do it.
Sugar does not make the cancer grow faster. Basically, all cells, including your cancer cells, need blood sugar for energy. They need it for the glucose. So giving more sugar to the cells isn't going to make it grow faster. Starving them doesn't make it grow slower. But where the concern is something that you've kind of already alluded to, is eating those desserts, sweetened beverages, things like that can lead to weight gain, which can be a risk factor for several types of cancer, including breast cancer. So again, going back to what we previously talked about, moderation and variety.
Now, I will tell you that I joke and say, for those of you listening, I have joked and said, I this and that because I'm vain. Honestly, I do make I've made changes in my diet over the years to for health reasons. Just because you want to be as healthy as you can. I work out.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to the gym and work out and then come home and ruin that workout time. And it has been important. And it's funny what I have you know, when you tell your friends that you have cancer, you get a couple of reactions from them. First of all, you get the shock of it. And then there is the sympathy. Like I can see it playing across her face. Boom, boom, boom. There's a shock, the sympathy, and then the fear factor. Mm-hmm. Because what Valerie has just talked about, like I don't really have any of the factors that you look at. Like I will even see the health professionals I go to, because I am thin. I have a low body, whatever they call
Mass
that.
index.
Yeah, there you go. I have that. I'm fairly young. I'm 53, so I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not also, you know, I'm not also older. I work out. I have worked out regularly since my 20s, and no one is, you know, no one is. How would I put that? Everyone can get cancer. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
No one is safe. But now what Valerie said is there are certain things that you want to watch to keep yourself from being, hey, cancer, I'm over here.
Exactly.
On my way. And so I have heard that doing all my readings and researching. Absolutely what she says is whenever you're overweight, your body just doesn't process nutrients the way it should.
Exactly.
And it goes back to moderation.
Moderation.
And on that, I have a funny story, not so funny if you ask my family. There's certain things, you know, I know myself, and there's certain things I cannot have moderation with, so I just don't buy them. So there's certain things that we won't even have in the house. I don't care how much my family likes them.
What are one of those things, Christy?
Oh, you know what? I really like Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Can't have it in my house. And it was like, just have a scoop. Yeah, no, Chrissy can have a scoop of some things, but not that. So
it's almost like when you think of a food like that, that's only something where you're going to have, perhaps if you go to a certain celebration, a family member's house, or you're out. I mean, there are some foods that I won't have in my house, but if I'm out, I might have that. And that might be that rare occasion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We did that not too long ago. There's a local restaurant. I love Bananas Foster. I don't know if you know what that is. I absolutely love it. So there's a local restaurant who doesn't serve Bananas Foster, but they serve Banana Foster's cheesecake. So the last time I was in there, I was like, can you just give me a scoop of ice cream and put the topping, the Banana Foster's? Oh, it was so good. But again,
that was perfect.
I will have that like once a year. You know what I mean?
Well, look at it this way. The bananas are a good source of potassium.
You know what? And that is absolutely what I love about Valerie. That is what I love about this book is it's like, let's be normal. Let's lead a normal life. Let's do moderation, treat yourself, but not every day.
Yes, absolutely.
And so now we're still on the first chapter, and it is at the end of every chapter, there is some like a few little recipes to support the information given in the chapter before. Now, what do I love about these recipes? Can you guess what I love about these recipes, Valerie?
They're easy ingredients.
Yes! I must have done that on purpose.
And things that you've heard of before. Yeah. You might have in your house.
You know, and yes, here's my secret, Valerie. I received this in the mail. Mm-hmm. And I was so excited. My husband brought it in the mail. I was like, oh my goodness. I was so excited. I ripped it open. The first thing I did was to go to the recipes because I wanted to see that. And then I was, oh, I know it. I know what that is. Oh yeah, I've heard every single thing in these recipes I have heard of. Most of them I have in my house. Going through this book, the only thing I have found so far that is not currently in my house when I received this book was wheat germ.
Okay. Heard of it.
It just wasn't in my house. Now, all the recipes in the book, that is the only ingredient that I don't keep in my house on like a normal everyday basis. Absolutely love that.
Yeah. It makes life a whole lot easier for people. It makes it more appealing to a lot of people. And the last thing you want to do when you're actively undergoing treatment is to drag yourself to the grocery store and buy a particular ingredient just because this recipe says you have to use it. And if you're going to have your friends and family support you, there are also easy recipes that your friends and family can make.
Amen. That's what I got to say. Amen. Because I, again, in researching, and you'll find, oh, you make this recipe. Well, I don't even know what half of those things are. Again, so at the bandwidth, I don't want to, nor have the bandwidth to research what that ingredient is, which one of my local stores has it. No, because at this point right now, I have become so busy and my groceries are delivered to my front door. And,
Absolutely. I think that's a great convenience that people that came out of the pandemic. I will definitely
isn't
say
it? I know. I was talking to my husband the other day. It's like, because my groceries have been delivered. I said, how nice would this have been when we were young parents and I had all these
yes,
kids running around, and
absolutely.
Now I want to talk a little bit. I have not, some of this book I loved about this book was opening my mind to things I will experience when I start chemo, or I might experience. So you don't feel like you're weird when it starts happening.
Exactly. Which
Because I thought about
a good thing, because it's almost like when you're undergoing anything that's the unknown, the uncertainty factor in it.
Yes.
And now you have an idea of what may happen, not saying it's going to happen.
Correct. The next chapter 2, is talking about taste and smell changes, which now, what do we attribute when we think of taste and smell changes? The first thing that comes to mind in today's world, COVID, absolutely. And so reading this, I thought, oh, good to know. I had no idea. And something I thought was important in this chapter is, well, there's lots of things, but something I highlighted was to not eat 1 to 2 hours before chemotherapy, because you can develop a food aversion. I never thought about that, but how many times do you eat something and then you'll get nauseous because you have the flu or something like that? But you have created that trigger between the food and being nauseous. So now that you want nothing to do with that food.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm sure Valerie never did this, but maybe, and I'm not saying I did, but maybe at some point in some people's lives, if they ever drank too much one alcohol and got sick, how you can never drink that alcohol again.
Yeah, it happens for people.
I'm not saying Valerie or I have ever done it.
Of course not. Yeah.
I'm not saying that. Something else I thought was interesting in here you put, which I never thought about, is to use plastic utensils, because sometimes you say it can make the foods taste like metal.
Yes.
That is something
Not only with the utensils, but now we're finding people having a variety of different types of water bottles even. And if it's a metal water bottle or something like that, that can sometimes make the water taste different for some people. Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because what am I drinking right here? I'm drinking my water with a metal straw.
It's hard to say. I can't say everybody who uses a metal straw is going to say the water doesn't taste right. That's not the case.
If I had not read this, I'll start chemo from the time of this taping in about a week. I would not have thought when I sat down, because I use the same thing every day. If I sat down, all of a sudden it started tasting like metal, I would have thought something was wrong with my water. I would not have attributed it to the straw. So it's nice to go through and read this information, because now I know it's like, oh yeah, maybe I need to switch out straws.
Right.
I'll switch a plastic one. Something I never thought about.
And maybe it's only temporary too.
Yes. And this is something that I have heard several health professionals, what I'm coming up with next, mention to me, but I really hadn't thought much about it, is because, again, I'm not skinny by any means, but I'm thin. Even though I like to complain about having gained, the COVID-10 or whatever. I understand that, look at the scale of my height, I can be considered thin. And so really everyone has warned me about that. The medical professions have warned me, be careful, don't lose so much weight, Really didn't think much about it. Reading this book, like, yeah, it starts hitting home more. And what causes it? So she has a whole section here on some of the things that can cause you to feel full early. And honestly, I know a lot of people who at first thought that, oh, that's a great idea, I'll lose a few pounds, just before they understand the enormity of what that can really do to your body.
One of the concerns is you don't want to lose that muscle mass either. And that's something that sometimes can happen during certain types of cancer treatments. Again, I'm making that a very broad statement because
Yeah.
it depends on, what type of treatment people are having.
Absolutely. And that's what I like about this book is you have all this information. And I know reading this book, it's just nice to have it there, and it's nice to read it ahead of time. So if it happens to me, I know what to expect.
Mhm.
And then you put in here some foods that you can eat that are good nutrition, and add some that will pack some, because I notice like cheese and crackers, that you have your protein and then you have your carb, a nice combination there. Muffins, and there are some great recipes in here she has for some protein packed muffins,
Mhm.
which I really like that. On the next page, because I wanted to address what you said about losing the muscle mass, is cancer fatigue.
Mhm.
Because I know myself, I haven't worked out nearly like I used to since I was diagnosed with cancer. Muscle mass loss right there,
Right.
because it doesn't take long to start losing that muscle mass
It
if you're
does.
not lifting weights like you used to. And mine has been more of processing what has happened. I was shocked at how much mental energy and physical energy it takes just to process the information coming at you.
It really does. And I think one of the important things that you have to remember now is you need to take time for you.
Yes.
And it's okay to say no to people sometimes. And it's okay to reprioritize and reorganize things in your life, not only your food, but whether it be your exercise routines, where exercise, absolutely, it's important, but maybe it's not going to the gym. Maybe it's now you're doing a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
Maybe even depending on where you are in your treatment phase, I walked around the house.
Yeah.
And, I used to tell people when it was particularly somebody who was concerned about doing the laundry. Okay, you got the laundry out of the bedroom and you got it into the next room. That was an accomplishment. Or what some people have done if they're big TV watchers and they say, I just want to lay in front of the TV, but I have all this stuff I have to put away in my kitchen. Those commercials come on for a reason. Go put every commercial, even if you put one item away, wash one dish. That's an accomplishment.
I love that, Valerie. I do, because it's so doable, and it's so not judgmental. It's so giving people a place of empowerment and accomplishment.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know, I met you through this business, and I would have complete strangers who would see me on TikTok and all these different forums. I had a couple of people message me before I was diagnosed with cancer, concerned about how hard I run. If you know me, like every business I've ever worked at, they've always nicknamed me a force of nature, because I go much better 160 miles an hour than I do 75. But I did. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I cut out some of the extras, like doing all my live events, doing my big events. I will get back to them.
Yeah.
But now I'm just taking care of my core business. And I've taken a lot of time for myself to meditate.
To know that that's okay.
Yes.
I think that's the other thing, because people sometimes feel guilty, but you do just need to take that time and be gentle with yourself.
And at first I did feel a little guilty. Everyone around me is like, oh my goodness, thank goodness. It's about time you started taking some time for yourself. But that's not my normal personality. So when you start behaving in a way that's not your normal personality, it can feel a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, I have a beautiful group of friends who have, they will have blanket statements out there of, whenever I want to see you, whenever it's good for you, give me a call. And the other day, I had my schedule free up. I called a girlfriend and said, hey, are you free from lunch? And she said, absolutely. So within a 2-hour notice, I'm meeting her for lunch.
That's wonderful.
They have been really good about taking a step back and not taking my no's as offense to them, knowing that it's just about my time. They've been wonderful about that. So anyone watching this that are trying to support a friend, I very much have appreciated that so much. I will get texts from them saying, hey, you don't have to answer this. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And then a whole group of them was like, hey, I want to see you whenever you're ready. Whenever you have time, let me know, and we'll make it happen.
Right. Absolutely.
but there's no pressure because, you know, in the years, sometimes you'll have those friends who kind of make you feel guilty if you're not making time for them. This is not the time to guilt anyone for anything.
No.
For those of you who are listening to this, Valerie's shaking her head no. Don't guilt anyone. And so now we're at a lot of good recipes. One of these recipes I have flagged just because I really wanted to try it. It's at the end of this nutrition chapter 2, which is appetite changes. It's a brown rice salad with corn and spinach. I want to try that. I have that flagged. It sounds delicious. And again, we have like a mixed stir fry in a pita and Greek yogurt. These are all things you have in your house. And if there's a variety of recipes, so if there's one that comes up that you're like, oh, I don't know what that is, go to another recipe.
Exactly.
The next chapter is we kind of just run through a little bit mouth and throat problems, which I'm sure there is something in here that you did touch on. Is gum disease and tooth decay and tooth loss, which can be possible long-term side effects of dry mouth, radiation therapy, and high-dose chemo.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. And before we got on this, I was telling Valerie because I'm on social media so much, my smile, my teeth, very important to me. Actually, not just because I'm on social media, it's just in general. But the second I was diagnosed, my dental hygienist messaged me and it's like, hey, this can happen, do this for dry mouth. And then she said, and try this kind of toothpaste. A real thing. I know also before I started recording, I was drinking something and Valerie's like, good, you're staying hydrated. So,
hydration is very important. Even if you just sip throughout the day, it's going to make a huge difference because a lot of different types of cancer treatments, as well as the side effects, can lead to dehydration, which can then lead to electrolyte loss. So it's something where even if you just sip water throughout the day, it's really important.
And I know that a lot of people aren't water drinkers, but you put in here a couple of different ways to maybe make the water taste better so what I loved about this book is there's no judgment in it. You don't say you have to drink water. You give alternatives. You're like, you know, put some lemon in there and you give alternatives to people who just don't like to drink straight water. So I love that.
think there's many different types of flavored waters out there. Again, if you don't want to go buy those cucumbers and chop them up and put them in your water, there's cucumber flavored water out there.
Yes.
You know, if that's something, or you talked earlier about the involvement of your friends. That's also something that your friends can do. Where, you know, maybe they can bring you over a pitcher of water with a variety of different chopped up fruits or vegetables in it.
What a great idea.
You know, you recommend, but it's something like you may say to them, well, I really like strawberries or whatever the fruit or vegetable may be. They bring you over a pitcher of water with strawberries in it. What a nice gift.
That. Right. That is not something I ever would have thought about.
You know, just something little. You don't have to go out buy expensive things. It's something that can be easy to do.
And you know, Valerie, I love that. And for those listening, I love that this book is about best case scenario, do this. Mm-hmm. But Valerie has clearly worked with enough people to know it doesn't matter if it's best case scenario or not. Some people just can't, maybe I'm just using water for an example, but there's, you know what I mean? Right. Some people can't stand water. Yes. You're like, okay, then second best scenario is let's put some strawberries, cucumber, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
Get your fluid intake. So it goes, so there's a whole chapter on the mouth and throat problems. There are some great recipes. So now we talked about throat and mouth issues. And so at the end of that chapter, there are a couple of soup recipes, vanilla pudding, like breakfast vanilla pudding and pancakes. So you can see how the recipes go along with whatever the issue is. So those are ones that are easy on your mouth and to digest. Next is gastrointestinal problems. And you know, if you've ever had the flu or any kind of stomach bug, nothing can make you feel worse than having gastrointestinal issues. They just make you feel bad all over. So there's a whole chapter here on, you know, what food, you know, what to avoid nausea. What can you eat to maybe help with that? Like you put in here snack foods, you know, dry toast, bagels, crackers, don't eat large meals. So there's a whole list of things that you can do. this in the area I'm pretty educated on, I've read a lot about it, but let me tell you, I was like, oh yeah. I didn't know that. Point being that I think you'll find a little snippet of information, even if you think you're well educated on an area, you're going to find a little snippet that you didn't know before. Very nice to be able to, oh, and here's dehydration on here. Being dehydrated also can make you feel nauseous. I never realized that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dehydration can also make you feel tired.
Yes.
It can add to the fatigue.
It was something that, like reading through this, I was like, oh, being dehydrated can make you feel nauseous. Didn't know that. And so then there's other areas on, how to avoid that, how to make yourself feel better. And of course, going to include, we're going to talk about those here, but the diarrhea and the constipation, again, all those stomach, GI tract issues make you feel terrible. At the end of that chapter, there is like ginger scented chilled melon soup.
Yeah.
Everyone knows ginger ale, good for the stomach.
Absolutely. Ginger candies can sometimes help with nausea. For certain people, even something like that plain old ginger ale, or ginger flavored beverages, something like that.
Yes, I love that this book is just so very normal. Ginger tea infused with fresh mint is the next one. Easy maple spiced apricot rice pudding. So a couple of recipes are just very easy on the stomach, help treat that nausea. Now next coming up is weight loss. And I know heading into this, it's not something that I'm like, because honestly, nothing really affects my appetite normally.
That's good, Christy. I'm glad to hear that. That's
but we'll see how the chemo works. Like I'm interested. It's like, I say, even when I have the flu, like most people are, I might be sick for a day and not eat, but after that, I'm like, give me all the food.
Yeah.
So we'll see if I'll be messaging Valerie. Valerie, it's happened. I don't want to eat. The world is coming to an end. So again, this chapter is a lot about on nutrient and calorie dense food that's healthy. Like, of course, the first one is nuts. Because they're healthy, nutrient dense. So if you feel like you can't eat a lot, this chapter gives you a lot of suggestions on how to eat a little, but get a big bang for your buck in that.
I think it's important to remember to make every bite count, as you talked about earlier, but also what I've told people a lot is those 5 to 6 small meals a day. When they first hear me say that, they're like, I can't even eat 3 meals a day. How do you expect me to eat 5 to 6 small meals a day? A meal might be that Greek yogurt, that it might be that snack, or you talked about this earlier, something with those peanut butter. What do you like with peanut butter? Do you like it on an apple? Do you like it on celery? Do you like it just on the spoon? Do you, and the same thing with hummus. Maybe just 2 or 3 crackers with some hummus. That's your snack. Move on.
I think you're right, because when you hear the word meal, you think, oh my goodness, I can't cook.
Right.
It doesn't have to be.
No.
Some of the and I will attest, because sometimes when I run appointments back to back in a day, and I don't do this every day, it'd be too exhausting, but there'll be days where I have back-to-back appointments. There's 10-minute break in between my appointments, just give me time to grab some water, go to the bathroom. I'll also grab a handful of nuts. Like I won't even eat a full meal on those days. I'll grab a handful of nuts. I like peanut butter on celery. I might do something like that. Also, I keep usually in my refrigerator, I will, like once a week, make a whole pan of roasted vegetables. Zucchini, squash. I'll put some sweet potatoes, onions, bell peppers in it, and I'll keep that in my fridge. And there is a section in here, I don't know if but of having foods that are easy to reheat.
Absolutely. And that's also something where you can do in advance. Like right now, you're in that stage where you're preparing to start your chemo.
Yes.
Now's the time to make some of those meals that you can then reheat later. Or another idea to involve family or friends is that's something they can do for you. You might be able to say to them, I like X, Y, and Z, but then they actually do the preparation. I've had this one patient who told me at one point that she was always nauseous when she could smell the cooking smells. even if
Oh,
she'd be in
yeah.
another room. So her very kind neighbor did all the cooking next door and brought the food over. And then she
I
was able to
love
eat.
that. I love that.
So
How
she never had the
kind.
cooking smells.
It's true because sometimes I didn't think about that, but there are times where, no matter where you are in the house, we live in a pretty big house. My daughter will be in the basement. I'll be cooking and I'll hear her steps coming up, feet up the steps. What are you making? So she can hear it all the way down there. So in this chapter on the weight loss, there are some great recipes for some easy to digest, nutrient dense and calorie dense recipes, like a warm breakfast smoothie. I love this. There was one. Oh, this is where the blueberry power muffins came in. Those sounded delicious. Lots of, just looking at the ingredients, you can tell they're very nutrient dense and they sound like they go great together.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is when we look at even things that are out there on the market or recipes that are out there on the market, there's so many things now that they've done with like just protein bites or protein bars, protein balls, anything like that, just to get in a little extra protein.
This one recipe I really liked it because it's like, oh, you feel like you're treating yourself. Peanut butter oatmeal cookies. Yes, there is a cookie recipe in here.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it has some just suggestions. It says 1 cup white whole wheat flour or all-purpose flour. So it's like you can use either one. Do I prefer to not use all-purpose flour? Yeah, I don't really care to use that because it's
right.
You'll get your glycemic index up real quick. But then you put. I had instantly saw that, but I thought, oh, I love that you can also use white whole wheat flour. Mm-hmm. Lots of options in this book. Like if you don't have something that's not your preference to cook with, you usually have an option here, something you can do. Next, in this book, we're talking about fighting infections, which, I'm just keeping manifesting that that's not going to happen to me, but I have had enough friends and family go through treatments that I know that can be such an issue, having infections, and that will take you out faster than the cancer itself.
Absolutely.
And so I love that in the front, you're instantly, before you get into the meat of the nutrition of it, what can I do to help prevent it? Because preventing it is the best case scenario, not having it in general. And I had a friend whose son fought cancer for many years, and during cold, she was always pretty diligent, but during cold and flu season, she was also like washing her hands, having contact with other people. Just all these things that you're talking about here. Avoid contact with animals, especially birds and cats. They transmit viruses. Caution when using sharp objects in your skin, such as knives and manicure sets, because you don't want to open wound. Like I remember her talking about all of these things, and her son never got the flu, even during the worst of the cancer. And chemo brings your immune system down.
Absolutely.
It
does make a difference. I mean, the hand washing and even making sure where your food is being prepared. You may not want to get it from the salad bar at the local store. You want to be careful of maybe some deli foods, things like that. Making sure fresh fruits and vegetables are very well washed.
Absolutely. And it was something that I had started doing in the beginning it was funny because a lot of the changes that are recommended for cancer, I had made in the last couple of months before I found out. It's like my body was intuitively telling me. And one of them was, even though it's more expensive, I had started buying organic fruits and vegetables, and of course, still washing them. But they just tended to taste better. They just tend to have a better palate pack to them. Now, on the nutrition related, she has some great, include some high protein foods in your diet, again, such as properly cooked eggs. Eggs are inexpensive.
Yes.
Chicken, if you buy the organic like I do, it can get a little bit pricey, but then you have on here beans. Beans are cheap, or inexpensive, I should say. Nothing's really cheap right now, but inexpensive. And then you put on here some eat high calorie foods to maintain energy levels and prevent weight loss, such as whole milk, cheese, milkshakes, meats, and peanut butter. Now, for those of you watching as I'm reading that, I'm kind of smiling because there was one section in here, I was like, I've never done that before. Because I can remember reading it. It just caught my attention when you said, this is one time in your life to really not pay attention to, like when I read on here whole milk, it's like, I would never, do you know how many calories that stuff has in it? There was a section in here, Valerie basically said, this is one time, just kind of let that go out the window. Pay attention to nutrition, pay attention to the quality of it, not necessarily the calorie.
That whole milk might be your snack.
It's true.
That might be your snack. And because it's a good source of calcium, it's a good source of calories, it's a good source of protein, vitamin D.
You know, there was a a little girl I used to watch probably 30 years ago. She's probably a grown woman now with kids of her own. And I forget what she had, a medical condition where she had to have snacks every so often. Maybe not necessarily when I was giving other kids snacks. And they had told her whole milk. Because it has a lot of nutrition, a lot of calories to it. Okay, so I know we're probably starting to get low on time. This was just such great information. I want to go to herbs and supplements real quick, because there are some of the herbs and supplements that, so I think it's important for people to be honest when they go to their doctor.
Absolutely.
What they're taking over the counter, because you have a list that can really react negatively to chemo. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just a multivitamin. It's just, you know, an herb I picked up at the grocery store. It's no big deal. But it's a big deal when you're doing chemo, radiation, doing some other hardcore things to your body. And St. John's wort was one that is mentioned in here a couple of times, which I didn't realize that. I don't take it, but I know a lot of people who do.
I think it's important, as you said, Christy, if you're taking any type of a supplement, to discuss it with your oncologist. You know, many oncologists don't do anything that could interfere potentially with the chemotherapy. Other people you can do it maybe in a certain form, but wait till after chemotherapy, whatever the case may be.
Yes. You know, and this is to kind of wrap up this book. And there's something else I want to discuss real quick with Valerie. There's just a lot of other great recipes like tomato bruschetta. I love bruschetta. You know, that's something I would have thought, oh yeah, it's in this book. You know, it's not something you would have thought about was nutrient dense or very palatable. Mandarin orange salad. That sounds delicious. I can't wait to make it. And then at the end, she closes the book with diet considerations for breast cancer survivors. And just ongoing long-term things to think about when it comes to still, you know, watch the sugar, bone up on calcium. That is the great concern, because a lot of times when you're finished with breast cancer treatment, they put you on a long-term hormone therapy, which can cause osteoporosis. So you really want to make sure that you're watching your calcium, you know, and then, you know, another recipe in here that caught my attention, Caribbean salmon steak, key lime pie. And the key lime pie she has in this is a healthier version of some of the ones I've seen that are packed with sugar. So don't think it's just a normal sugar-packed key lime pie. No, it's a healthier version. So I really like this book. Anyone that it's available on Amazon, and I will put in the verbiage of this podcast that where they're watching on my YouTube channel or the audio version of how you can contact Valerie. You can get her at vjkogut@gmail.com, but I will have that written out. Also, I will have the name of this book. I will have the ISBN number in the verbiage, and it's available on, of course, Amazon. Who doesn't know about Amazon? But now something that Valerie and I had talked about earlier before we started recording, I wanted to bring it up, is making sure you're comfortable with your team of healthcare professionals. And do you want to speak on that a little bit, Valerie?
I think that makes a huge difference during any type of cancer treatment, but not only cancer treatment. Let's expand this broader, Christy. When you're going into any type of healthcare situation, if you don't resonate with your provider, or you don't get good responses maybe, or you're frustrated, get that second opinion. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying to doctor shop till you get the right answer that you want, right. But I'm also saying that you have to have a good relationship with your healthcare providers. whether it be the office staff of the nurses or the MAs who are going to be responding to some of your daily or kind of normal messages, but also your interaction with the physician. If it just doesn't seem right for you, go to somebody else, because it's going to make a world of difference in your treatment. And also having that positive attitude makes a huge difference.
It really does. Yes. And I do love, because just because you don't resonate with someone as a medical professional doesn't mean they're not a good technical person,
Right.
or meaning they don't resonate with someone else. I mean,
Yeah.
look at your circle of friends. Everyone has a different circle of friends just because we connect differently to different people.
Mhm.
And so I have noticed that that has been very important to me, to be responsive and answer my questions. A lot of patients just don't even want, just tell me what to do. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to ask any questions. Just tell me what to do, which is great for them. That's just not my personality. My personality is, like Valerie was saying, I ask a lot of questions. I need them answered. Even if people like they're stupid, I still need them answered. And so that has been very important. And something that, and what I found with cancer is that a lot of people, when they first hear me talk, will say, I love her voice. You don't love my voice. That's not what you love. What people are hearing is the way I sit in meditation and the way I sit in love every single day. And I really pray that when people hear my voice, that resonates with them.
And it certainly does, Christy.
Thank you. But now, that being said, in my private life, was I not a little bit peeved when I was diagnosed and it started wreaking havoc on my business and my life in general? Yes, I was extremely ticked off. And if you were in my inner circle, you got to hear me say a few choice words, which Valerie might have heard me say a couple before I started recording. But that being said, I gave myself the opportunity to move through that and get to the other side. I wasn't going to stay there. I wasn't going to stay stuck in that annoyance, because that is not beneficial to your health or getting better or to moving forward. None of that. But I think it's okay to honor your feelings as long as you're not sitting stuck in the anger or sitting stuck in bitterness or sitting stuck in any kind of negative emotion. So I want everyone to give themselves grace if they feel that. But then you have to get through it and move to the other side.
It can be difficult. And for some people, it requires talking to maybe that trusted friend or maybe that professional, whatever works for you. For some people,
Absolutely.
if they just sit and have some coffee or tea with a friend, that's what they need. Other people, they may need to talk to a professional.
I 100% agree. For me, I did a lot of talking to my friends, a ton of meditating, but I do already a lot of meditating, psychic medium that I am. And then also writing it down. Now that came to me, I'm not a writer. I'm not really a journaler, even though I should be. It just came at me. I was call them synchronicities, and through synchronicities, it was dropped into me. You need to start journaling this. You need to start writing it down. And so sometimes I will do that, and I do find it helpful.
I think journaling is great. One of the things that I like about it is it stops that constant tape recorder in my head of mulling over some of these emotions, whatever, because then you've already put it on paper. Yes.
Absolutely. 100% agree. And then if you need to talk to a professional, and I have noticed, like when I call and make an appointment within my cancer treatment facility, you can make an appointment with a mental health professional who is trained to help support people through the cancer treatment. A nutritionist, someone like that. So there is help out there. My poor friends just had to listen to me whine for quite some time. I mentioned it to one of my friends. She says, oh, please, you think you don't listen to me whine? Turn off fair play. So Valerie, thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Christy. It was such an honor to speak to you today. And also, I'm thrilled that you enjoyed the book. Thank you.
I did. I so loved it. It was easy to read, lots of great recipes. So if anyone wants to contact Valerie, again, it will be in the verbiage, however if you're on my YouTube channel or on the podcast, however you're listening to this, but it's vjkogut@gmail.com. Her book is Nutrition and Cancer, Practical Tips and Tasty Recipes for Survivors. Again, I will have it in the verbiage of this podcast along with the ISBN number. You can find it on Amazon. So I hope you don't get, well, actually, I hope you get inundated with emails, people asking questions, because I think education, informing yourself is key.
Education and nutrition, my two favorite topics.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because I know Valerie in kind of a different light just from reading her and us having a normal conversation. But to see her kind of flip into that professional mode, and it's like, oh, I love that side of you, Valerie.
Christy.
I'm going to thank everyone for joining me today, and I hope everyone has a blessed day, and I will see y'all next time around.